This is the entrance exam for the Knights Academy, and to pass it, candidates must damage these enormous magical iron pillars. The instructor walks among them and sees that no one is making much progress. No matter how hard they try, the pillars are simply too tough, and their swords shatter like glass. The damage they manage to make is pathetic. Even most of those who enhance their swords with magic fail, leaving behind nothing but pitiful scratches after all their efforts. Though there are a few really skilled guys who actually manage to damage the pillars, but even they look mediocre compared to one guy named Astor, who activates his red aura and just destroys the pillar with a single blow. Everyone is left in shock and can't believe their eyes. This guy just effortlessly destroyed the pillar in one strike. Even the instructor, who had been calling everyone here losers just moments ago, is surprised. So who is this guy? Ash was an orphaned boy who had spent his entire life believing he was good for nothing. When he was just an infant, his mother died after freezing to death on a snowy night. The one who rescued him from that unforgiving blizzard was the head of the Elmheims. The Elmheims are the continent's greatest martial house, having pledged their swords to the royal family as guardians. Sitting at the pinnacle of this house is Roderick Elmheim. After rescuing that little kid from the jaws of death, Roderick became his surrogate father. While growing up in the Elmheim family, Ash was constantly looked down upon for not having wings on his back. You see, wings are a symbolic representation of the magic and power one possesses. The more wing crests you have on your back, the greater your abilities. But since Ash had no magical powers within him, he was dubbed the Wingless. Still, the unfairness of fate didn't keep him down. He continued practicing relentlessly in an attempt to get stronger, holding a firm belief that hard work always pays off. And indeed it did, just not in the way he hoped. He lived his entire life following his father's pointers, doing everything he was told. Yet in the end, he was betrayed. His father wanted him dead. Along with his other sons, they finally ambushed him. The boy tried his best to fight back, but being magicless, he couldn't really go up against his despicable father and his wretched brothers. Eventually, he was tied down and pierced through the heart. Before his soul escaped his body, he posed a dying question to his father. Why did he raise him if he wanted him killed to begin with? It was then revealed that his father never intended to have him around. The only thing he wanted was to steal the 7 wings Ash was born with. Now that he had stolen what he raised him for, it was finally time to discard this wingless boy. Of course, Ash wanted Roderick to explain what the hell he was talking about, but the only response he got in return was his merciless brothers stabbing him to death while his father simply walked away. As his consciousness began to fade, he started to feel cold, and soon found himself back among the living. He is currently inhabiting his infant body. He has regressed to the moment when he and his mother were ready to die in the blizzard. Sadly, his mother is already dead in the snow, leaving him behind. Moments later, he hears an entourage of knights looking for his mother under Roderick's command. Their agenda is to retrieve the infant, and that infant is our boy. This sounds all too familiar to Ash. He recalls that in his previous life, he was told he was found on a blizzardy night. This makes him realize that perhaps he has regressed back in time. Realizing he is in danger, the little infant begins crawling his way through the snowfields. The magic exuding from him helps keep his body warm. Dragging himself is way too hard for someone with such a small body, but his will to survive, and his desire not to fall into Roderick's hands, gives him enough willpower to crawl forward. At one point, he eventually collapses due to exhaustion. However, he is soon discovered by a man and his daughter. Thankfully, this man isn't Roderick, he is Viscount Highfried. The graceful man crouches down and cradles the kid in his warm embrace, wondering how in the hell an infant ended up in the cold. What the Viscount notices next shocks the hell out of him. The trail carved in the snow clearly indicates that the kid dragged himself across a mountain to reach this point. This unprecedented sight leaves the man wondering about the child's origin. Abruptly, Ash wakes up in shock after getting poked by someone his own age. As it happens, there are a bunch of kids surrounding him, waiting for him to wake up. Now that he is conscious, all the kids grab him and push to take him for themselves, essentially smothering our boy in their tussle. My guy has enough of it and leaps out of everyone's grasp. The other kids have no clue what is happening, so they start giving chase. Involuntarily, Ash ends up using his innate magical abilities, which launch him into the sky, leaving him vulnerable to a free fall. Fortunately, he is caught by the Viscount. It is at this moment our boy finally gets a clear look at the man, only to be shocked when he realizes who it is. It turns out this man is Duke Roderick's older brother, Viscount Highfried. The poor guy is devastated. He crawled all the way through the blizzard only to end up in another house of Elmheim. Here is a little context about Highfried Elmheim. This man rules over the Viscount house, a branch family of the Elmheims. Highfried once stood as one of the twin wings alongside his younger brother Roderick, entrusted with protecting the royal family. However, Viscount Highfried supposedly met his end while fighting in a civil war. His death apparently led to the downfall of the Viscount house. Seeing this man alive only solidifies Ash's previous assumption about having returned to the past. Though ending up in his enemy's brother's house was something he never even considered, the mistress takes hold of this peculiar child who literally launched himself into the sky using magic. She had doubts that he wasn't a normal boy, and this confirms her suspicions. Even the Viscount thinks that the child harbors immense strength, and the wings etched across his back are living proof of that. The kid has 7 wings on his back. When little Ash realizes that the boy who was once considered wingless is actually the owner of 7 wings, he is stunned. Everything clicks. He finally understands what Roderick meant back then. In his past life, that bastard merely rescued him with the intention of stealing those 7 wings that rightfully belonged to our boy. The thought that he was mocked and looked down upon for being wingless by Roderick is infuriating. Just then, the mistress poses a curious question to the Viscount, wondering what he plans for this kid. The Viscount stands in cold silence, which makes our boy dread the worst. He has been robbed of his wings once, and he doesn't want history to repeat itself. Contrary to what the kid had been dreading, the Viscount shows a very positive attitude toward the child and wants to adopt the infant as his son. Extending his hand, the man pats his newly owned kid to express his affection. He sees this child as a weak fledgling unfamiliar with the ways of worlds, a bird who has yet to learn how to take flight. He decides that until the day the kid learns to soar through the skies with his wings, he will take the responsibility of raising him. Ash's eyes light up upon hearing such sincere words because he can tell they are honest. Eventually, the other kids also stumble across the room while attempting to search for our boy. The oldest among them expresses how worried they were about him. One little girl approaches her mother and requests the name of this child. The woman holds the kid up just like Rafiki holds Simba and graces him with the name Aster. His name symbolizes a new star who has been born into the family. And just like that, 10 years pass. Lord Highfried makes his grand arrival right outside a massive mansion of Duke Roderick. Following him is our boy Aster, accompanied by his sister, Alphen. She is the same adorable Alphen who was just our boy's age back then. Now, she has turned out to be a fresh flower plucked straight from a garden. Let's learn about the reason why the Viscount and his kids are gathering at this place. The Sword Dance Gathering is an annual event hosted by the Duke's house under the Elmheim banner. In simpler words, it's a social gathering of nobles hailing from warrior houses. This gathering acts as a catalyst for them to come closer and make new acquaintances. It is also a place of rivalry, where each house shows off their young swordsmen who carry their family names. As Viscount Highfried and his kids make their way through the crowd, we realize that they aren't well accepted in this gathering of nobles. Everyone is whispering among themselves, talking shit behind their backs. They are sure the Viscount is once again going to end up humiliated like every year. What's more hilarious to them is the fact that Viscount Highfried has adopted some runt of unknown background. Everyone loathes them for one reason only. The Viscount is seen as just a stubborn stain on Elmheim's shiny name. Since it is the first time Aster is partaking in this annual gathering, he isn't very familiar with the ropes. So, his sister warns him to stay firm on his feet and avoid showing any sign of weakness. Those who appear weak will be the first to get blown out of the competition. His sister's trembling hands make Aster realize the standing of the Viscount family isn't that strong. And well, that's exactly why Viscount Highfried brought Aster with him. He wanted him to witness firsthand the current position of the Viscount family within the Elmheim name. Perhaps sensing this, he questions his foster child if he is disappointed by their downfall, while my guy expresses full enthusiasm about the situation they are currently in. Even though Aster isn't a masochist, he is still enjoying this cold reception they are getting upon arrival. His enthusiasm certainly amuses the Viscount, who is relieved to see his forward-thinking attitude. You see, in Aster's past life, he too was called the disgrace of the Elmheim family. The kind of reputation he had then is nothing compared to this. Coming back to this place doesn't jog any fond memories because there aren't any. However, Aster is looking forward to making some new memories that will be painful to some, but amusing to him. After all, he isn't the runt he used to be. He has his 7 wings, which is more than enough to devastate both of Roderick's brats. This time, he is ready to make a spectacular debut that he always deserved. Fast forward to the arena, with 2 contestants already duking it out. In an era where everyone yearned to become a knight, an individual would have to compete hard to stand at the pinnacle. For that, a knight must possess both strength and elegance. To achieve strength, Excelling at swordsmanship is necessary, while elegance and splendor can only be earned through fame. Those who possessed both qualities were granted the absolute family symbol, the wing crest. As one of the contestants takes the title of the wing crest, the audience erupts in a round of applause. The intensity and energy in the air are as intimidating as ever, and it never fails to rattle Alphen. Since both her other sisters, Fren and Freya, had already witnessed the cutthroat intensity of the competition, they simply refused to even join as spectators. The victor must dominate and humiliate the loser in an effort to show off their dominance. Even the sight of the loser in front of him reminds our boy of his miserable past self, who was a laughingstock for others too. His sister abruptly interrupts his thoughts, snapping him out of it. Perhaps she thinks he is feeling scared, which is understandable since it's his first sword dance gathering. Well, it's clear his sister is misunderstanding his situation. He is far from scared, and when he proclaims it confidently, his sister gets confused for a moment. Right then, the Viscount announces his departure for the time being since he has a conference meeting to attend. Before walking away, he hands over the responsibility of Alphen's safety to our boy's shoulders. The girl feels offended for obvious reasons. After all, she is a year older than him. The father then also hands over a free loading screen tip to his son as well. Since there are many people around his age, he suggests he try to get along with them and make new friends. However, he quietly warns him to conceal the secret of his 7 wings from everyone. With that, the man is off, leaving the siblings standing there, surrounded by people who eye our duo like wolves. The both were receiving a condescending and judging glare, as if they were nothing more than intruders who didn't belong here. Our boy thought of the hostile atmosphere and figured it would be impossible to connect with people here. But suddenly he saw someone and immediately walked away from his sister, leaving Alphen in confusion. The boy had finally scored an opportunity to make friends. But that was just an excuse. The friends he's talking about are seated proudly. They're the sons of the main family, his previous siblings. The boy greets Darius politely, introducing himself by full name and stating intentions of simply dropping by for a hello. Grion, the second brother, explains that this is actually the adopted kid from the Viscount's family. Just hearing that much is enough to dazzle Darius, who mocks Aster for having the nerve to address himself as one of the Elmheim. Both of these brothers are the same cruel beings who killed him in his previous life. At the time, they were frightening to face against, but watching them now, Aster thinks they're nothing more than just a bunch of kids trying to act Sigma. Suddenly, Alphen comes along to drag her brother away, believing that Aster has done enough by greeting them. Of course, as she's taking him away, Darius calls out to her, insulting her for not hiding behind her father today. Having the authority of the main house, Darius demands her to come sit by their side and entertain the Elmheim heirs. However, Alphen isn't a bitch and refuses the order, reminding them that the two families never had a master-servant relationship. She forcibly drags our boy away, who shows hesitation and refuses to leave. Aster doesn't want to wrap up here, but Darius makes things much easier for the both of them. This bastard gets all fired up and starts shouting insults against the Viscount, who despite being a knight, ended up failing to protect the king. As a consequence, Roderick severed his own brother's arm off, making him a disgrace of the family. Alphen is stomaching all of these insults listening to Darius, but this man drops another zinger by pitying her for sharing his loser uncle's blood. The rage bait is successful, causing Alphen to go up and confront the mocking brat. She wants to stand up for her father, but her display of bravery is torn to shreds when he spits out his grape juice right in her face. Darius reminds Alphen that useless girls like her can't inherit the title, so her father must also be disappointed in her. He also questions her dressing up improperly, without having any clothes to prevent getting wet. Alphen stands there at the brink of crashing out, and while watching this scene, Aster is grateful. He's grateful for the fact that his shitty brothers are still the same, because now, he doesn't need to quell his anger. It's just a good reminder of why he wants his revenge in the first place. Aster enters the chat by grabbing another bottle before going up to his sister and tossing the bottle up high. The noble quickly grabs the bottle, not knowing that it was the perfect distraction. At that moment, our boy unsheathes his sword so fast that he cuts the bottle and spills its contents on Darius's face. The arrogant noble is caught off guard, reduced to an embarrassing sight, while Aster cleans the liquid from his sword, before tasting some of it in his mouth. He realizes that it's actually just grape juice and not wine, which is the perfectly fitting for trust fund baby nobles who want to act tough. Just 3 years ago, Aster's unfathomable energy leaked while his father, the Viscount, tried his best to restrain him. The boy's outrage had harmed Alphen, and the rest of his sisters were in grave danger. He continued to unleash the might of the 7 wings, becoming the most unstoppable force on the planet. Aster's leaking energy was devastating to the point even the Viscount felt uncertain in his ability to stop him. The boy was consumed by his berserk state. Back to the present, Viscount Highfried receives a sudden visit from one of his servants. He has interrupted an important conference for an immediate announcement, revealing the clash between the Sons of Elmheim branches. The announcement stuns Highfried, while Roderick stays mogging. Highfried aura farms with pure Sasuke energy, when suddenly Alphen bursts through to explain the situation. The other members in the conference witness the ongoing duel between both the great Elmheim brothers. It's a rare sight in the arena, so everyone's looking forward to it. After all, the winner of this match could very well decide the fate of the Sword Dance Gathering event. On one side stands Darius, the arrogant dickhead who thinks he's hot shit just because he belongs to the main family, even calling our boy a worthless stray that their family took in. Wearing his power with pride, Darius shows off his four-wing crest, impressing the audience with his might as the son of the Duke. To mock him, Darius taunts our boy to show everyone his wing crest in an effort to humiliate Aster for having a weaker wing crest than him. Our boy confirms to this wannabe imbecile that showing off is indeed embarrassing, so he couldn't ever stoop so low. Watching Aster's calm and collected response pisses off Darius even more, but our boy's not finished there. He places a condition, emphasizing that if Aster won, he's going to make Darius apologize to Alphen. In return, Darius wants Aster to become a dog for him for the rest of his life. We get some real action as the brain-dead autistic monkey lunges forth with his dual blades. The first swing is casually blocked by Aster, who is still sent back from the impact. Watching his sword tremble is enough to show that Darius isn't a pushover opponent, while the redhead glazes himself as the mightiest of them all. A proper sword clash follows as both fighters exchange swings in their dance. Alphen is worried for her brother, but it's worthy to note that Darius's swordsmanship is lacking. But even with half-decent sword skills, the real advantage is that the punk has an overwhelming amount of magic. That's what makes the wing crest bearers so different from ordinary fighters. A single wing could be used to represent the magical power of a candle. The magic of four wings, on the other hand, is exponentially stronger. That's why Darius is confident in his barrage, as he's got the firepower of an explosion in his arsenal. Heavy on the offense, Darius taunts his opponent for being tight-lipped, wondering where Aster's confidence disappeared. Meanwhile, our boy is casually playing defense, prompting Darius to take even more extreme measures and aiming for a heavy dual-blade strike. The spectators suspect that this fight's gonna finish with this next hit, but then comes Aster's sword, beautifully cutting in and blocking both swords. The look on Darius's face is amusing. He shares complete bafflement of how his attack was stopped. Aster, our glorious king, basically tells him to shut the fuck up for once and sends his bitch ass flying into next Tuesday. Our boy imbues some of his magic into his sword, while remarking on his decade-long training to control his magic. He spent every moment getting better so that one day, he could exact his revenge against his brothers. Going on the offense, our boy strikes down his sword against Darius, who is struggling to block. The heavy impact forces him down on his knees, astonishing Grion that his brother is actually struggling. At this moment, Aster looks like a demon with unfathomable magic power, while his opponent is trying to maintain the shit talk by saying he's got four wings. Looking at him like an emotionless demon, Aster puts more magic into his sword, making the crowd question if the brat of the Viscount family could actually win this brawl. The son of the main Elmheim family is in deep trouble, when suddenly those same golden sparks turn into black. The look on our boy's face tells you everything. This wasn't supposed to happen. Even Highfried can see it. Darius is barely holding on, but the mere memory of this bastard ripping off our boy's arm in the previous life is more than enough fuel for Aster to keep going. He exerts far too much power, to the point his opponent is pathetically begging him to stop at this point. Highfried roars at him to stop, but the boy continues to bulldoze Darius into the ground. It comes to a point where the cocky redhead's swords are shattered, concluding the clash in an upset. Darius is on the ground after pissing himself with a surprised Pikachu face, while Aster force-feeds him the same words this clown told Alphen, to wear better clothes next time so he doesn't get wet. The fight wraps up with Aster reflecting on how he's no longer the powerless and wingless Ash anymore. That much is enough to make him happy and clear his head. Suddenly, our boy experiences fear of death when he senses the dominating aura of Roderick coming from behind. The moment he turns back, Aster sees Roderick with a murderous expression on his face, as if he's displeased with the outcome. The people among the audience are all thrilled by the outcome. The youngest and adoptive son from the Branch family ended up beating the main house's third son. However, with his reputation obliterated like that, Roderick isn't just going to stay quiet for long. Having balls of titanium, Our boy walks up to Roderick, while Darius smiles, thinking that his daddy is going to resolve the situation for him. Aster stared up at the towering man who was the head of the Elmheim family. The man stared down at the boy with fierceness, but Aster continued to match his gaze. He wanted to take down the Duke with his own hands. At that point, Darius flung over to his father's side, clutching his uniform and begging Daddy to kill the dog who tried to defame the might of the main family. Roderick stared down at his boy with inconsideration, and before Darius could even finish his sentence, he tore a blade into his own son's hand. The audience watches in horror, realizing that this guy might even end up executing his own son. The Duke is merciless in judgment, stating how Darius is grinning like the fool he is even after dragging their family's name down. Highfried begged his younger brother to stop, but this man is the definition of extreme and loaded his sword to end his own son's life. The blade descended but never reached its target. Why? Because Mr. Balls of Titanium stepped up to Roderick, stunning the Duke. Our boy reasoned that Aster still hadn't apologized to his sister as part of their bet, so he wanted his uncle to save any punishment until after the conditions were fulfilled. Duke looks down at him with ferocity, recalling how the kid is just an orphan picked up by Highfried, yet somehow believes he belongs to the Elmheim family. Aster fires back, stating that he's absolutely the Viscount's son, and even without any blood ties, he has learned from his father about the pride of a knight and the weight of inheriting one's house. Hearing those words, Roderick glances back at Highfried, then makes an even more tyrannical argument. He thinks that it's Aster's fault for damaging the pride of the main family by showing off his pride in front of everyone. Even for a children's quarrel, it's far too much disrespect for the main house to handle. Roderick mocks Highfried for offering one arm already as the price for crossing him once, so now he wonders what the boy is willing to give up. Aster is in some serious hot waters right now because he needs a good argument. To set the tone, he assures his uncle that this was a proper duel, and not just any brotherly quarrel. He fought with a sword to answer Darius's swords and his insults against the Viscount family, even declaring that the person who can't avenge his own faults shouldn't have the right to bear a weapon in the first place. Those are the words of the Duke himself, so Aster isn't going to be offering even a single finger. The boy's got some mad guts and everyone can see that, refusing to believe that he's only 10. Roderick's intensity wears off as he sheathes his sword, accepting the argument. Then strangely, he tells the boy to quickly draw his sword. Terrified, Aster reaches for his weapon, but in that exact moment, the Duke's sword is already on his head. This man pulled a psych moment on a literal child and launched Aster crashing through walls. Alphen holds up her face in terror while the boy's father roars at his brother's cruel response. The Viscount leaps into the arena to personally challenge his brother, but the Duke doesn't even look at him as he blocks his attack. Highfried leaps up and down, running to check on Aster's condition. What he finds is a shattered blade, but here's the part that gave me literal chills. The kid is actually standing on his feet, even while all bruised and battered up. He blocked that last hit with fierce determination. There's no fear in his eyes. Roderick sees this and turns back around, leaving with his son.